It was a wonderful process because, as I said, it taught me to be independent. It taught me to be patient, understand what sacrifice meant.
I think it's really important to capture the highs and the lows because it's not all been a straight path going up in life.
As you know, as a boy, I was always a very family oriented sort of person. My parents had a huge influence on me back then, especially being the eldest. You don't really have, you are here to graduate as a imam, it's your parents' dream, but make it your dream as well. You should enjoy the process.
From DevOps to property investor, I'm joined here today by Abul, who is going to talk to us about his life story from both a personal perspective and a career perspective. And we're going to go through all the highs and lows. This is going to be so intrusive, but he's ready to take the plunge. Let's go.
Let's go for it.
So Abul, thank you for joining us today. I wanted to really interview you because, one, I've seen your career from a young age and you've done tremendously well. You've been working with an IT lean, let's say, but we can go into that a bit more detail. You've been working more recently on the side, doing more property type stuff, and we'll go into that as well.
Yep. And
I think it's really important to capture the highs and the lows because it's not all been a straight path going up in life, right? And I think what people want to know, because let's say a young 14-year-old Abul listening in who thinks, I don't know what he's thinking, but let's assume he's thinking, yeah, it's going to be easy. I'm going to get the fancy car, the watch, the everything, and it's just going to be click of the finger and it's going to come. And we want to capture all of that meat and really tell a true, raw, real story. So, do you want to, let's start with Abul in school. What were you like in school?
So it's funny, right? Like, some of my friends say, especially those who kind of went to school with me, like primary school and stuff, they would say right now I'm more of an extrovert. Like, quite sort of, if I'm in social gathering, I'm quite loud. I like to have a joke, have a mess around with people and have a laugh. Whereas when I was in school, like from sort of primary school days, I was actually a bit more of an introvert, which is really quite bizarre because I used to kind of keep myself to myself. I'd be in the playground in a little corner, just minding my own business. I didn't really have the confidence to go and sort of make new friends or approach people and stuff. And obviously as you are quite young, you kind of don't really know what you like. But I loved sports when I was a little boy. That's all I kind of knew back then. I love football. Still got the same passion for football right now at this age, and then I love playing sports. So in my head, I was like, I'm going to be an amazing footballer when I'm younger, as you do as a little boy. But in terms of what I was like as a child, yeah, I just loved to try to meet new people, but mainly just focus on playing sports and doing what I can. Loved PE activities, but yeah, I didn't really know what I liked back then as a little boy, I guess.
Would you say that your family influenced how you were growing up? Because you're the eldest, right? Of your nuclear family.
Yeah.
So how do you think that influenced your school life and also your outlook on life as well?
I was actually sort of born in Bangladesh. So I kind of came to the country when I was 18 months, so pretty much a baby. So I've pretty much been here my whole life. And obviously, my dad has always been a chef, sort of a head chef in Indian restaurants. He's sort of run Indian restaurants, but, sort of back then as a boy, I was always a very family oriented sort of person. My parents had a huge influence on me back then, especially being the eldest. You don't really have, an elder sibling to sort of kind of follow, look up to at that point. So, whatever I sort of learned and understood about life in general, whether it was education, whether it was about picking up life skills, it was primarily around my parents. They were kind of my first sort of best friend, you're kind of your first superhero, if you will. And yeah, so they had a huge influence in terms of where I went to school, where I stayed, because I was never in Bristol in the very beginning. I used to stay in sort of Norwich, in a small little place called Sheringham, just outside sort of Norwich and stuff. And so I spent most of my sort of, I think, nursery up until year 2, year 3 there.
So what was in Norwich? Why Norwich?
So when my dad came to the UK, most of my dad's side live around sort of Norwich area, Oxford, sort of London. So my mum's side is actually from Bristol. So at the time when my dad came to the country, he was offered sort of a business partnership in an Indian restaurant with some of sort of my uncles in sort of Norwich area. So that's where he decided to first settle. So that's where I kind of went to school and stuff, and in the area called Sheringham, which it's a bit like Weston-super-Mare, but obviously more east of the country. So it was weird over there because I was the only South Asian male there, South Asian student there, actually, in a full sort of predominantly white sort of school. But I had a good time there from what I remember. I never sort of experienced any bullying or anything like that, or an outcast or anything like that. It was, they're very welcoming. The teachers were very lovely. But it was, as you can imagine, in a place like that, it's very quiet, sort of. And, we used to kind of stay on top of the restaurant my dad used to work, because we couldn't really afford to buy a house and stuff back then. My dad worked really, really hard to ensure we had a roof over our head, food on the table. And I grew up seeing that. So for me, the reason where I am today, being sort of self-made, all kind of came from seeing what my dad had to go through at that time to ensure that, we had some form of education, food on the table, as I said, roof over our head. I learned hard work by watching him growing up.
How did that restaurant partnership go for him?
For him, it actually went really well. My dad is an investor, more of a land investor, I would say, internationally. So, for him, his business partnership at the time, was kind of his bread and butter. That's what he knew. He enjoyed it as kind of, he worked his way up though as a head chef. So he didn't kind of go in and be a head chef straight away. He had to go in as a kitchen porter, and then, you become like the tandoori sort of chef, and you become the main head chef. So I kind of seen him go up the ranks, and, the partnership went quite well for him, where it helped him sort of invest back home and, sort of build a property and stuff back home. So whenever we used to go back, we had a place to stay over there, but yeah, it was a success for him. It gave us a really good start.
And how was it at home with your mum, obviously looking at, I'm assuming she was a homemaker
at the time, yeah.
And obviously dad's at work,
yep.
working hard,
yep.
evenings. I can relate because obviously we're from Bangladeshi backgrounds.
Yeah.
So we know the how hard our parents hustled. But how was the setup at home? Because your siblings would have been, actually you would have been the only child then, or?
At the time, yeah. Hassan was born, my brother, in sort of Norwich at the time. So I was the only child for about 3-4 years at the time until he was born. So as you say, the home setup wasn't like your average sort of home setup where you might be in a 2-3 bedroom house, where you've got some privacy, where you've got, that luxury of, being in a so-called normal household. With us, it was just a flat above a restaurant. It was quite difficult for my mum because at the time, obviously me being very young, she had to go up and down the stairs quite a lot because we lived quite high up. I think we were in the 3rd or 4th flat above. So you had to, it was quite difficult going up and down. If you had to get some basic groceries or use a toilet, you had to come down a few steps. It wasn't part of the same floor. We kind of all just stayed in one room, and that was it. Like my parents in one corner and I'm in the other corner, but you're all in the same room. But that was what we had. That was what my parents could afford to give me and my little brother back then, and so we were grateful for that, for us still.
I think they call that studio flat now.
Pretty much a studio flat, yeah.
Yeah. So were there other people living downstairs as well in the other rooms?
So you had other employees in the restaurants that used to that obviously worked there. They would be offered sort of their own sort of rooms that they would stay in. So it wasn't like private or anything like that. We had to share it with the other employees.
Yeah, I can imagine it was quite hard for mum.
Very difficult, very, very difficult. But you're, whatever kind of life throws at you kind of deal with it, right? And at the time, we were kind of just grateful to have a roof over our head. we had to ensure that my dad was stable. He was able to, start to establish himself, because he was still very, very early on in his own career, in his own sort of investment journey. So we kind of, because we could see him working really hard to support us. So vice versa, my mum did the same to support her husband and ensure we went to school. My dad didn't drive, my mum didn't drive. They still don't drive because they just couldn't, because of just life choices, and it wasn't easy to go out there and learn to drive, I guess, because he had other responsibilities. So we had to walk to school, walk back. It was quite a bit of a journey in the rain, the thunderstorm, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I still remember those parts of my life.
Early mid-90s.
yeah.
So let's kind of fast forward. So Norwich happened, and sounds like it was a happy childhood.
Yeah, it had its ups and downs. Obviously, it wasn't like smooth riding, but it was still, my parents still did their best to give us whatever they could, and we were always grateful for it.
Yeah, you had food on the table,
Absolutely.
roof over your head.
We had all the basic necessities met, so yeah.
You've met the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, security needs and basics, and working up to self-actualization. So what made you move to lovely Bristol?
Yeah, lovely Bristol.
What happened?
So basically, actually quite a similar situation. So my sort of granddad, you know him quite well, Haji Mohram Ali. When he came to sort of Bristol in the 60s, 70s, he was here helping sort of build the community and stuff. And that's where, his sons, my uncles, were in Bristol, and they started to build, the wonderful Bangladeshi community we have in Bristol today. And as part of that community growth, my uncle decided to open the Balti Hut, so a restaurant they had for something like 25 odd years up in the Triangle, Clifton. So at the time, they needed somebody, who was a good chef, but who could also potentially be a business partner, and even better, if could be a family member, somebody they know, right? Because they tried to keep it in the family. So that's when they called my dad and said, hi, we are thinking about opening a restaurant in this area. We think it could be a really good investment. Could do really well for you, even better than where you are now. And would you like a partnership? So my dad said, yeah, why not? Because he trusted my uncles. They got on really well with him. Even though none of my dad's side were here, it was just my mum's side. And he said, yeah. And we moved to Bristol in 1998. And I've been here ever since sort of 98. But I think that was a really good move. I'm grateful for that move because I love Bristol. Obviously, I'm here. I've got obviously friends and family here. But for my dad, that business is what kind of helped him become stable. Even then, obviously, when we moved to Bristol, we were still renting and stuff. We couldn't really afford to stay anywhere. That bit was tough.
How old were you?
At that time, I would have been in year 4 as I came in. I obviously changed primary school, so I don't know how old was that back then?
Yeah, about 8, 9 years old.
8, 9, I was going to say roughly, yeah. So yeah, still very, very young. I still, trying to understand what life is in general myself, So that was quite different because I went from a very small little town to a big city, and I remember when we moved, obviously, I knew my uncles and stuff in here because we used to visit them at times. So settling in wasn't too difficult. They obviously made it more comfortable.
You've got a big family, right?
Yeah, I got quite a big family
in Bristol.
In Bristol, yeah.
So how was that settling in? Obviously, would have been made easier because you've got family members.
Yeah.
But with lots of family, also there's politics.
Yeah.
So how was that settling in? Were you aware of politics, or was it actually quite smooth and quite loving for you?
Yeah. So to be fair, I think when you're like 8, 9 years old, you don't even know what the word politics means. You can probably barely spell it. But for me, it was I'm really grateful to my uncles. Even till this very day today. They've been part of some very, very important moments in my life, and they made it very easy for us because they respected my dad. They appreciate the fact that he was going to be their head chef, and ultimately they knew how hard it is to just move from city to city. So they're like, we're going to do our best to make sure they're comfortable because ultimately it's going to make sure that, they have a better life, and also it's going to help us because we get, to keep a really good chef and a good business partner. So that's what, and ever since we moved here in 98, we never had to look back because, slowly I went to school here, first Bannerman Road, then May Park, which is next to your house. May Park really well. But I love May Park.
Didn't know you went to May Park.
Yeah, I went to May Park. Yeah. For the year three, four, 5 and 6. I was there for sort of 3 years or so. And then, and after that, I started to settle down, get comfortable, making friends, So
I was going to ask, just to interject. So would you say you getting uprooted from Norwich and moving up, sideways to Bristol?
Yeah.
Do you think that contributed to your maybe being a bit more shy and quietness, or were you always like that as a young kid, even in Norwich?
I was, I was always like that as a young kid, and I had that similar sort of personality even in Bristol. When I went to Balham Road for a little bit, and then I moved to May Park because it was a bit more closer to where we lived. Because maybe it was a bit of a culture shock coming from a smaller town to, a bigger city with more students, multicultural. I wasn't used to multicultural before. So it was different for me. And I think it took a bit of time to kind of get used to it. And then I think I remember from year 6 and then going into year 7, that's when I really started to get a bit more, I started to find out about myself, I can go and meet people, I can speak to people.
Getting out of
your shell, and it's fun. Like, you get to meet people, you get to make friends, play football, cricket, whatever it is you like to do at that age. And so for me, that was really important, because today, one of the biggest contributing factors to wherever I am today is because of my personality. And that was built from the early ages, of me moving schools, moving towns, coming out of my shell, making that first step to not be an introvert and meet people. So yes, I just guess over time, just building that confidence of coming out of your shell really helped massively.
So I'll just kind of honing on 2 points.
Yeah.
So the first one really is you've had 3 big moves, I'd say, right? One from Norwich to Bristol, and then your school moves as well. So you've moved school 3 times.
Yeah.
I've got young kids,
right?
Yeah. So I know how important it is to have a very good, stable, I guess, friendship base. Yeah. How was that for you? How do you remember much from it? Was the instability affect you in any way, or was that quite a smooth transition for you?
It wasn't smooth, no, because so obviously when I moved from sort of that Sheringham area to Bristol, you're moving from one school to another, which is obviously, say, Balham Road first. Back then the eastern area was, it was quite a rough area growing up back then. You know yourself.
It was the hood.
Yeah, it was the hood. The ghetto, as they call it. So it wasn't easy because I had no friends. You make new friends, and all of a sudden you move to another school that you got to start again. Then you got to go out. I can't make new friends again. How do I go and speak to this person? And etc. So it takes as a young child. It was really difficult to find stability, in just a school, because you're moving around and you got no choice. I mean, you got no say at the time, right? Because you got to go where your parents go. And so I just kind of went along with it and did my best, to settle in wherever I was put, which was, as I said, the three different schools. And I don't know if you do want to talk about the secondary school stage now, but that's another change, and that was huge, that bit. But again, I'm happy to talk about that now or whenever you want to ask me that question.
Yeah, we'll go on to it. I was going to ask about the second bit, really, because you talked about your uncles have been there for the big decisions in your life. What are those? Yeah,
so obviously one of them being offering my dad the business opportunity to come and start a business here. So that part of it was them actually supporting us, being around us. So my uncles have always been like an older brother for me, because I didn't have an older brother to look up to. And my dad was always so busy on the move. I didn't really have the opportunity to sit down and ask him questions about life in general, whatever, any kind of advice I needed. So my uncles were there. And then over time, up until my age now, they've always been part of decisions, whether it's me going to secondary school, whether it's me potentially, going to uni, etc., or even buying a car. I'd go to my uncles, hey, uncle, I was looking to buy this car, what do you think? And they would kind of advise me. And then, for example, like recently I got married, last year, my uncle was there, with the main talks. That's a huge, life decision.
Big responsibility.
Yeah. So now you can see that they were part of literally a lot of big decisions in my life. And, and I'm always grateful to them, even to this very day.
And so let's go back to you've done the primary school thing. You said there was a big moment in secondary.
Yeah.
So what happened in secondary school? What happened to Abul?
This is crazy, right? So, and I know I still talk about this day till today. I told my brothers about it. I tell my friends about it. And so I was only a 7. I went to City Academy. This was when it just changed, if you remember yourself, from St. George to City Academy, right? And we still had some of the old St. George buildings around. You know, they're still breaking stuff. There's construction work going around. But we did have the awesome 4G pitch back then. I think we were the only school in Bristol to have a 4G pitch, Astro pitch. But anyway, so I love my time there because a lot of my friends from May Park went to City Academy. So even though you start to meet other kids from other schools there, you know, you still had your kind of main group of friends move with you. So the transition in secondary school wasn't that scary at the time because you got into big boy school, as they say, you know, and for me, I was still in my area. My friends are still there. So it was great. I settled in, had a great time. City Academy was all about sports. You know, they've, you know, produced some great professional footballers. Some of them play for Fulham and stuff these days. I loved it. It was a perfect place for me to be. And then all of a sudden, I remember, came to the end of year 7, summer holidays. I come home one day after playing with my friends outside, and my mom goes to me, "Oh, Abul, I'm sending you to an Islamic private school." I'm like, "Sorry, where? When is this happening?" And she goes, "Yeah, you're going to start there from year 8."
To madrasa.
To madrasa.
Which one?
Yeah, Kiddy Minister,
Yeah.
Madinatul Ulum. Place is very, very close to my heart. You know, I come home one day and mom was like, you know, I'm gonna send you there. And I was like, okay. You know, well, I don't know. As a little boy, I cried a lot at the time because I didn't want to go.
What year were you in?
Year 8. So I just finished year 7. So this is like, you know, summer period now, June, July, when you normally finish. And from September, I'm being told I'm going to, you know, in Kidderminster outside Birmingham, all on my own, right?
Where did the idea come from? Did someone plant that idea and your mum said, or did she always?
Yeah, so there was another guy from Bristol. He's still here. You know, he started going there. You know, so at the time my parents didn't drive, so his dad, really nice guy, offered my mum and said, "Look, I'm sending my son to madrasa. You know, if you want to, I can take your son. Whenever I take my son, or when I bring him back, your son can come back with me." So the whole transport issue was kind of resolved. And my mom always had the dream. She didn't really want me to get into banking or IT or go to uni. She wanted me to become a hafiz, which means you memorize the whole Quran off by heart. So that was her dream. You know, her dream was like she wanted me to become a hafiz.
To train to be an imam, basically.
Yeah, that was it. You know, she didn't want me to do anything else. So I just went with the flow. I thought, okay, mom, whatever you see best, I'll, you know, whatever makes you happy, I'll do it. So then, you know, all of a sudden, after like a month, I'm packing my bags as a little boy. How old are you? 13 then, roughly at that sort of age, 14. You know, I'm off. You know, I'm off to Kidderminster now, and I'm there. You know, the first day I got there, I was bawling my eye. I'll never forget that day the rest of my life because it was scary. Like, there's so many different moves happening in such a short period of time in my life. I got there, I remember calling my mom, I was crying. "Mom, I want to come back home. I miss you. I miss my brothers, you know, I miss my friends. Like, you know, where have you put me?" This and that. And I knew nobody there apart from that one guy who went from Bristol.
Did you feel a sense of like anger, frustration?
All of it. As a little boy back then, you know, you don't know how to control your emotions. The first thing you do is just cry because that's kind of all you know, right? So, you know, I just started, you know, crying. I remember, and I was thinking, and do my parents, are they neglecting me, or, you know, do people not want me around them, or why am I here? I had no idea what my purpose was.
So when I first met you when you're 15, 16,
yeah,
you told me about some of the stories in Kidderminster. Yeah. So I just want to explore some of that. So you told me about the cold dal and the cold rice.
Yeah, It was. I mean, yeah. We used to obviously have.
It wasn't Michelin star. Let's put it that way.
It wasn't. No, it was a Michelin star. But at the end of it, you know, it was that place made me where I am today. You know, if I could go back, if I could rewind time back, and you asked me, Abul, would you start a career, if you had the choice, would you start a career in IT now and you'll be earning this much in this year's time and you'll be this successful, or would you go back and stay in madrasa? I would choose.
That's fascinating, because when I spoke to you, Abul, when you were 16 years old, that was like, that place was traumatic. I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
So your narrative has changed about it. Your outlook on it was changed on reflection.
Just through life experience. I'm 32 now, and I've seen a lot, been through a lot, made good choices, made bad choices. I learned from all of them, and for me, it was a really important part of my life because it taught me to be independent. At that time, they didn't have any working washing machines. You were washing your own clothes. I was washing my own bed sheets and stuff, squeezing the water out like they do back home in the villages, and then drying it out and then changing it. I was only 14 then.
What year were you talking?
Year 8. I was in year 8.
Oh, what 19, was that 2000?
Yeah, that was, what was that, 2004, 2005, around sort of then, roughly.
Sounds like it was 18th century.
So, yeah, well, obviously a long time ago, yeah. So, but it taught me to be independent. That was the key word.
Yeah, most people say they go to uni and, cook a bit of pasta, and that taught them independence.
Yeah.
Sounds like you had to do a little bit more.
That taught me independence. It taught me patience. It taught me sacrifice. Within a couple of days, I had to train my little brain that I was here for a purpose. I was here for a reason. So whatever crying it is, you got to put it to a side, Abul. Whoever you're missing, you got to put it to a side. And it was drilled into our brain, in madrasa, that you are here to graduate as a imam. It's your parents' dream, but make it your dream as well. You should enjoy the process. And and I made, and it was a wonderful process because, as I said, it taught me to be independent. It taught me to be patient, understand what sacrifice meant. I used to go home, I think maybe 3 times a year. Only if, the longest period we got was during Ramadan, where we'd come home for about 6 weeks. But that was different to summer holidays, because summer holidays was during the summer period, but we didn't get that time. We'd only come home for 6 weeks during Ramadan, which could be obviously different months, right?
So that was your equivalent to a summer holiday.
Equivalent to summer holiday, yeah. And then, and because it was so far, we couldn't just go home whenever we wanted to go home. So, that sort of taught me a lot. And what I loved about it was the brotherhood. Like, even till this very day, these guys, all my friends, I got friends all over the UK because so many people from all over the UK came to the madrasa. We never ever lost connection because you're 24/7. You're there. You're sharing your happiness. You're sharing your sad moments. You're lifting each other up when you're feeling down. You're reminding each other what your purpose is here. If you're, and how do you reach that end goal, etc., etc.
So for anyone listening to this, what was your purpose in madrasa?
My purpose, I'll be honest, at the time, because as a little boy, I hated it at first, right? Because it was hard. I couldn't memorize everything. You're learning Arabic from scratch. Whatever you were taught in mosque, it was different because you had to learn the proper way, with tajweed and all that stuff. And then eventually, the only thing that was in the back of my mind at that time was it was my mum's dream. And no matter what happened, I had to achieve it because it will make my mum happy. You know what I mean? But along the way, I started to then enjoy it myself. I was like, oh, this is amazing, because you get to learn about your religion, you understand your purpose of life, why you're here, you learn about the afterlife and so forth. And ultimately what they teach you there is to love and respect people, love and respect your parents, your elders, Muslims, non-Muslims, and be a good person and teach Islam the way it should be taught to everybody, and spread that word and be an ambassador of Islam. And I believe in that story. So my end goal was to be a hafiz, and make my parents proud.
So it sounds like from a behavioral, from a, you growing as a person, it was really positive.
Yeah.
What was the academic side? Your, English, math, science, all those things?
I'll be honest, it wasn't the best back then, because they were kind of established themselves as well. So, we would only have, every sort of Monday to Friday after sort of Zuhr prayers, which is roughly about sort of midday, we'd have about 3-4 hours in the afternoon of learning, English, mathematics, science and stuff. And to be fair, they did their best. And, and we had a couple of people actually back then who actually even went to unis. So I have, a really good friend of mine, his sort of uncle was a really great sort of ambassador of how you can go to madrasa, but also be successful education-wise. So he was going to uni and he was doing his alim course at the same time, which was incredible. That was incredible. So he was someone we looked up to. Like, you know what? even though the education facilities may not be up to standard, but whatever they could do, you kind of just, you just, you give it your best, you learn what you can, you focus, and then you look at this person like, if he can do it, we can do it.
So you held that as inspiration.
Yeah, because this guy was doing it,
So what made you come out again? What made you come out of madrasa?
So, the reason why I left madrasa at the end of it was just in year 10. So we just started year 10. And we decided, I was a little bit of a naughty boy back then as well. But at the same time, it came to a point where it was about almost 3 years in, I wasn't achieving what I had to achieve. Because, and it got to a point where my dream of becoming a Hafiz, mainly for my mum, but also for me afterwards, was becoming a bit more of a distant dream. And we had to kind of be a bit more realistic with the amount of money my mum was obviously spending and me investing my time into it. Was I gaining anything out of it, in terms of me, becoming a Hafiz and stuff? And it came to a point where I just wasn't. I just didn't have the same abilities as some of the other students where they were becoming an Imam or Hafiz within 2 years, some within 2.5 years.
Was that because they were really passionate about it and that's what they really wanted to do?
I think so.
Because like you sound really positive about it now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to labor on the point, but I haven't spoken about this in many, many years, right? So you're 32 now. I spoke to you about this when you were 16.
Yeah.
And we haven't had this conversation.
No.
I was fully expecting you to be like, oh man, it was hard work. It was it was, we really struggled. But you've got on reflection, you've got a really positive experience. And I remember the struggles you went through. It wasn't a negative experience as such, but it was more of the struggle that you went through, and that was very prevalent in your mind, and that's why you felt you come out at the time. I don't know if that's still like if you've kind of healed from that, and now you see it as on reflection. That's more resilience building.
100%. It was probably one of the best things that could have happened to me. And I go back there to play like football tournaments every year, once a year. And every time I step in through the gates, like the hairs on my arm just stand up because it's like, whoa, I lived here for 3 years and I built a brotherhood here and I learned so much good stuff, how to be a good person ultimately.
And that's really interesting because that whole narrative of brotherhood, helping each other through. Yeah. Young Abul, that wasn't in your mind then? That's something that's come through maturity. And you look back on reflection and think, wow, that's some experience. It's interesting.
Crazy experience.
So you're here now in year 10. You've come back. You've got some good memories, some bad memories. Probably educationally, you're not where you need to be.
No. Yeah.
How did you recover that? You're back in City Academy again?
No. So I tried to get back into City Academy, but at the time, obviously, it's quite late. You just didn't have the space to fit us in. So then we looked around, and Downham was the best place at the time. It was quite far, actually. So I had to catch a bus every day to get there, all the way from Easton, St. Mark's Road, all the way to Downham. Yeah, it was literally the last stop of 48, 49, still going to today.
That's like a 45-minute journey?
Yeah. I had to wake up really early, sort of catch the bus, because my parents didn't drive. So there's nobody I could go with. So yeah. And Downham was awesome, actually. And some of my friends today, from Downham are still really, really close to, they're like brothers to me. They made so this is what's weird, right? So now I've come from madrasa into Downham, and it was almost like a repeat of what I was going through as a child in primary school. I'm just moved from school to school. So I went to Downham. I'm much older now, right? So you're 15 years old, 16 years old. You've got a bit more life experience. And I was there, but I felt really uncomfortable because it wasn't really a multicultural school. So I kind of felt a little bit out of place that I shouldn't be though. But ultimately, it was a huge culture clash for me because I'm coming from an all boys Islamic boarding school to like into the wild, like. And
Downham wasn't exactly multicultural
at all. No, not at all. There's a couple. There's literally a handful.
So you've gone the other way then. So you've gone from Norwich to multicultural Bristol.
Yeah.
To then Islamic school.
Yeah.
With just one demographic, let's say.
Literally, yeah.
To then all white.
Oh yeah, pretty much all white school, right? And and I don't know how to socialize. How do I speak to people, right? Because I was very Islamic, the way we greet people, in an Islamic way, the way we dress, Islamic way, So I was all of thrown into down in school with my down in uniform, thinking I got to start all over again. Imagine hitting reset at year 10, right? So I was like, oh, and then I was a bit of an introvert again because I felt uncomfortable. I was back in my shell, right? So I was like, how do I go speak to people? Who do I approach? How do I approach them? Because my social skills were just out the window, right? Because I was in a Islamic school. So it took me a while to. I had one of my cousins go there, so I was spending time with him. And me and him were very different.
Mabs.
No. This is another guy. Mabs was in City Academy still, so he didn't move around. But then me and him were a bit different. So eventually, after a little while, that's when some of my friends, Ammo and some of these guys, they kind of came up to me one day and they're like, "Oh, hey, you're this new guy. Do you want to come and chill with us?" Literally, I was playing football and they just came up to me, like, "Oh, we haven't seen you around before. You look quite new. We've been here since year 7. I was, "Oh, yeah, I just came in, And as they came to me, I didn't go to them.
That's nice. You don't really get that on the
you don't really
playground.
get that. And I always, they're still like brothers to me till this day. We sort of always hang out. So then I was like, yeah, cool. I'll come and hang out with you guys. So then, I go and hang out with them, and I then meet his older brother and their mates in year 11, and I start to, get into the crew. And then all of a sudden, I became this popular kid, right?
So you rebuilt your confidence.
Rebuilt my confidence. And what is world like outside of madrasa, outside 4 walls, right? How does it feel like being in a normal sort of social school with people, not necessarily from my sort of demographic? And I had a wicked time at Downing. Since that sort of time of me getting to know people, I loved it. It was a great school. Some of my friends are still here around Downing, Emerson's Green, Mangotsfield. Got a lot of my mates still there, and the last 2. Well, I was there for 6th form as well after I went to uni.
So schooling, so social side.
Yeah,
I can see the beaming smile. You had a really good time.
Yeah.
How was it for you educationally? Because that must have been a real struggle to try and catch up, right?
I had a lot of catching up to do, a lot. And the only thing I could really do at the time was just do extra studies. So my mum, after school, she would pay for a maths teacher, a science teacher, and English I was generally quite good at. So I didn't really need it, but mainly maths and science I needed a bit more support because I was quite far behind. So after school, I used to have about an hour break, and around about 4, half 4, 5, something like that. I used to get a tutor come down, and we used to do extra, learning and stuff. And I did it. I enjoyed it at the time, and because I was like, you know what, this is actually helping me in school. So when I go back into school, I've caught up with everyone else, so I didn't feel like I was out of place or I was really far behind or feeling dumb or something.
So you're motivated because you could see the results.
You could see the results, yeah. And I knew ultimately that I had to do something. And I tell you one thing, it's quite personal to me. I remember when I left madrasa, Kidderminster, and I couldn't do it, and I couldn't achieve my mum's dream. I remember that night, she was really heartbroken, really disappointed. And she was bawling her eyes out the whole night. I could hear her crying in the other room because we didn't live in a very small 3-bedroom house. And you could literally hear her. And I was crying my eyes out because I felt like I let her down. And I'll never forget that scene for the rest of my life because I've always wanted to make my parents proud of me. No matter what I achieved, whatever I was the best at, I wanted to be the best at that for them, then for me. So it was always their faces that would come into my head every time I wanted to achieve something. And I remember that night, I told myself, you know what, that night I was crying in my room. She was crying from her room. And I said to her, you know what, Mum, in myself, I said, one day I will do something that will make you proud. So from that night, I told myself, like, Abul, you have to do something in your life that your mum can say that she's proud of you, your dad can say that he's proud of you. So, and that day I fixed it in my head that I'll try and go to uni. Maybe that's something I could do that will make her happy. So that's it. And that's when I started to go down, obviously. And I was doing this additional courses outside of school, tutoring and whatnot to help me, do what I can. And yeah, so it took a lot of additional effort, but eventually I managed to sort of catch up. And, again, I didn't get the best of GCSE results, but I got what I needed to then get into do my A-levels. So, it was fine. Yeah.
So that's deep, man. So again, I didn't know that about your
Yeah.
mindset at the time.
Yeah.
And it was around the time I met you as well.
Yeah.
Because you
11.
went to, what was it, an after-school club,
Yeah.
run by the Bangladesh Association.
Correct.
And I was a volunteer there. I was a volunteer teacher. I used to love it. That was probably 2008, 2009?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. What were your thoughts about that?
I loved it, man. You know, not because you were there, a little bit because you were there, but I loved it because, again, that was part of the extracurricular activities you're doing outside of school. My intention there was not to socialize, was when I heard, oh, the community is doing this hard work to bring in these teachers that can help you lift your grades up. I thought, okay, well, it's a bit of a no-brainer. I told my mom. Mom was like, yeah, of course, whatever you need to do, go and do it to help you bring your grades up. So I went there and I loved it. And the social side of it was amazing. You did some great work yourself and organizing, you know, activities and, you know, help with homework and stuff, and just, you know, career advice and career skills, you know, that was awesome to get. And I loved it, you know, because I learned a lot. You know, I managed to get help for homework or end of year sort of project advice and stuff like that. And ultimately it was a bit of a safe space for me, I felt, because I could go there and I could still be myself. But I had these adults I could look up to, like yourself and the other chaps who were there. You know, I could just go to them for just advice. You know, hey, I'm trying to do my homework. What's the best way to do it? Or, hey, I want to become, you know, wealthy. How do I do it? You know, or, you know, I might go to uni. What's the best route? But I had, what that place gave me was access to the right people with the right knowledge and the right skill set.
Yeah, it was interesting because we wanted to create, I think the word safe space is quite prevalent. That really hits me because that was the idea, was when this concept came of running an after school club for people in the community. You know, it was very expensive to get private tuition, right? And the idea was for it to be fun, but to create a safe space, one, to do homework, but also to make sure that we've got the right people in place to be able to guide, coach, mentor, all of that kind of stuff. And I'd say that most of the people that come through the system, through that, you know, program, which ran for a good few years, the funding went for, went on to, you know, live their best life, let's say. You know, some wanted to go to uni, they went to uni. Some wanted to do apprenticeships, they went to do apprenticeships. So I wouldn't say it was just because of that, but we had the right kids with the right attitude that came through.
100%. Yeah.
That's quite interesting. Yeah. So you then went to sixth form college?
Yeah.
So after sixth form college, how did that go?
Yeah, it went really well. That's when I started to really take education a bit more seriously, because I was like, you know, and what I liked about that was you got to pick what you want to do instead of just being given subjects that you have no choice but to do. So I picked the 3 or 4 subjects that I wanted to do. IT was one of them, which I always quite liked. I was never really good at it. I just liked it. So I thought, that's good enough. If I like it, I'm sure I'll find a passion for it. So yeah, that was fine. I was, you know, I stayed in Downend because I felt comfortable there. You know, some of my friends moved on to other colleges, some stuck around. So yeah, I sort of stayed there for do my A levels. But yeah, you know, it was fine. It was really good. I started to be a bit more independent then, and
that got you to uni?
Yeah. Went into uni, so I decided to stay local. You know,
what did you study
in uni? I studied IT management for business. So great degree. Highly recommended for anyone out there that wants to do IT, but also wants to understand the business side of you know, companies as well. So when I did that course, it only been around for about less than 10 years, I think, at the time, compared to other disciplines which have been around for centuries. And what I liked about that course was that, you know, so you had roughly about 6 modules. Half of them were very technical, where you're doing, you know, programming, building websites and all the fun IT stuff. And then the other half of it was based around business, you know, so understanding economics, understanding, you know, business logic, operations, HR, all that kind of stuff that you need to know. And it kind of gave you a really good overview of how businesses work and corporations work in general, but a bit more niche towards IT, because ultimately you're looking at the technical side of stuff in IT. But I really liked it. I thought it was a great degree. And it's a funny story, right? So when I started, it was a 3-year course. So my first year, as you do, you're fresher, you're enjoying life, you're having fun, you're meeting friends. So by that time in my life, I'm already a bit of an extrovert. So I'd go up and speak to anybody and make new friends or whatnot. I was fine. So it was really good the first year, but it came to the summertime, and I failed 3 of my modules, right? Because I was having fun, I wasn't really focused, chilling in the library, whatnot. So
Not studying in the library.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, not really using what a library should be used for. That was a pinnacle moment for me in my life, because at that time I told myself, I'm in uni, I've just failed 3 of my modules. Luckily, I knew the first year doesn't count towards my overall grade. So I was like, right, is this a lifeline for me? And I told myself, I got 2 options here, right? The first option is I focus on study and get my degree because I want to do it, or I just drop out. No point even retaking those 3 modules. So this is me talking to myself, looking in the mirror.
Drop out and do what though?
No idea. I would have just dropped out because I'm wasting my time here, right? I'll go and figure something out. I always figure stuff out. I would have figured something out. But who knows where I would have been if I didn't stick around uni. So I told myself, you know what? I'm going to have to make a change. I'm going to have to change my friendships circle, which I did instantly. I still love the guys. I just didn't chill with them all the time. Like, no, I'm going to go to the library instead of going playing pool or something or going bowling. No, I'm going to go to the library.
And that was instant?
Instantly. So what I did...
You just ditch your friends like that?
Yeah, I don't really ditch them. They were still my friends, but I used to chill with them outside of uni sometimes. Instead of chilling with them 3-4 times a week, maybe once a week, So, yeah, and they respected that because they could see I was focused. And I decided to chill with my other group of mates, who were studying, who were doing really, really well. So I was like, right, I need to go with that group. Otherwise, I'm going to, just fail modules again.
So you moved away from the party animals to the nerds.
Yeah, to the more sort of focus group. But one thing that I really learned at that time in uni was that, and I tell all my cousins, and I get a lot of people that come to me, ask me, how did you uni, what advice have you got, etc. And one thing I learned in those 3 modules that I knew what I could achieve if I put my 110% into something. That something could be anything. But at that time, it was my studies. So that something was my studies. So those 3 modules, I did so well that, they cap it, right? They cap it at 40%, I remember. But they show you what you could have got, if you did well and not mess around. But then, unfortunately, you can't get yours 2-1 or first. You're going to be capped at, 40%. So I remember 2 of those modules, I got like a high 2-1. I was shocked. I'm thinking, my other 3 modules that I passed, by the way, they were just passed, like 2-2s, whatever,
So these are the 3 modules that you failed
that I failed in.
You retook and you smashed it.
I absolutely smashed it. Only because I just decided to not mess around. I decided to study, go to... I was literally... we were fasting at that time as well. Ramadan was in the summertime.
So you're feeling extra holy, extra spiritual.
Extra spiritual, but it was hard as well because I'm in the library 6-7 hours a day, and I couldn't, because usually when you're in the library, you snack, you have a little drink, it keeps you going, keeps the blood flowing, but I had nothing. I couldn't drink nothing, right? So I'm in the library. It was hot.
What's that analogy go? What? You couldn't even drink?
Yeah. Nothing. You can't even have water. So, but, I just realized what I was capable of at the time, that if I just put my heart and mind into it. So literally I got really good, I would have got good grades, but I got capped. But that was good enough for me. I didn't care it was capped. It was good enough to motivate me to be like, you know what, Abul, you can achieve more if you put your mind to it and if you focus. And that was it. Literally just changed my mindset. Second year and third year, I was a whole different person. I was in the library constantly. I was in the library, I'll sit in the classrooms, I'll be studying. Because I told myself that if I don't graduate, I don't come from a wealthy family. My dad we were a very, very basic average family. I haven't got a rich dad that can set me up a business or something, or a mum or a family. I got nothing. This is it. Don't get me wrong. If I graduated, my degree might mean nothing. I would have achieved nothing from it, but it was a shot and I was willing to take that shot.
So that was your almost like your lifeline to
Literally, yeah. And you're still young then, you know. I look at my little brother, 23, 24, they're kids, you know, so I was technically still a kid. But to be able to have that mindset at that time, I don't know how it happened. It just happened, I guess. I was able to change my direction in life. So second year, I think, you know, I came out with just under a first. You know, 3 modules I got first, 3 modules I got 2-1, coming from barely scraping a pass to results like that. And then, you know, and then my third year I did, you know, I think I finished on 68.5 my degree. So
was that 2-1?
Yeah. Almost a first class, you know. I was really angry. I was really happy that I could even produce that, but I was like, oh man, I was so close to getting a first. So I was more annoyed that I couldn't get the first. But what a turnaround that was for me. And that was huge, man. That, like, for my family, for me, you know, graduating, getting the degree, setting the standards in the family.
That was you were one of the first ones in your family, right? In your extended family.
My extended family as well. Yeah. Because I'm one after my uncles is me, you know, in the
so
generation.
After you, a whole bunch of them started to graduate, right?
Exactly. And I'm really proud of them. They know who they are. You know, I'm really, really proud of them. You know, they're doing amazing. They look at me like an older brother. I started to do what my uncles did with me to them.
So you basically was the steamroller, showed them what's possible.
Absolutely.
And then they've kind of started to follow suit.
Yeah, 100%.
Fantastic. And that's social mobility right there, isn't it? Like, but that all came from really focusing, because what I'm hearing here, the overall kind of summary of it is there were certain points in your life that you could have gone, you could have chosen the blue pill.
Yeah, literally.
Or you could have chosen the red pill.
Yeah, pretty much a Matrix moment. You know, and I just somehow chose the right pill every time. But it led the way for my family, you know, for me and my family to, you know, show them that it's, you know, it's capable, you know, we can achieve it if you put your mind to it. And I became a role model, which for me was a massive achievement in itself, you know.
That's fantastic. So now you've graduated, you've gone into the world of work. How long did it take you to find a job? Because a lot of grads are probably watching this and thinking, man, I graduated, you know, a job should be just
ready. Yeah, you just walk in, you know, with your cape flying in.
And then it's a big slap in the face.
Yeah, a huge slap in the face. It was tough, man. I'm not going to lie. It was tough because, okay, so at the time when I graduated, we had bought another restaurant on Church Road, Deli Flavor. I ran the whole operation of Deli Flavor whilst I was still studying in uni. So I built the logo, I built the name, I designed the menu myself, literally from inch to inch. I did the marketing side of it, everything myself. My dad didn't know anything. He just had the money. He goes, son, I need you to help me.
I mean, you did such a good job. I've never heard of it.
Amazing. But, you know, it did really well in the beginning. You know, everything worked. And I was like, wow, you know, it's just, obviously my family helped me a lot. My brothers, my mom, my dad, we all put our time and effort into it. But in terms of the operations side of it, I was managing it, you know. And at the same time, I'm there trying to find a job, you know, graduated, but I'm also running the family business. So, you know, I was just like, oh, this wasn't easy. So yeah, it took me about 6 months or so, 7 months to find a job.
So one of the hardest things for, let's say, Bangladeshi men, young men who've gotten into the restaurant or takeaway family business is they get used to the money, right? Because you're obviously paying yourself, right? You're getting a nice little amount every week. And at that point in time, you're probably going to make more money running that takeaway or that restaurant than you will do as an entry-level analyst or, you know, entry-level role, right?
Yeah.
What motivated you to be like, you know what? I'm gonna go for a corporate sector job or a professional job. I'm not going to be sticking it out here.
Yeah. So again, that was another important point in my life. So at that time, we had, you know, other sort of personal problems as well. So, you know, our parents' relationship was a little bit rocky. They had their own problems, you know, and my parents, you know, decided to split at that time, which made things very difficult for me because it was just me.
Hang on. So it just went from working really hard. Yeah. Dad's working hard. Mum's working hard with the family. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's rocky.
Yeah. Massively. This was obviously a build up over a few years, you know, as as married couples will probably know themselves, sometimes things go really well and sometimes things are really bad. And when they go really bad, you either fix it or it starts to get really, really bad. But yeah, they obviously had their own problems for their own reasons. And it was a build up over the years, and then, it just explodes at a certain point, and my dad just walked out.
How did that affect you?
Massively. Mentally, it was draining. It was mentally exhausting. It was mentally draining because I had to run the restaurant. My brothers obviously helped where they could. My youngest brother was too young, but my middle brother helped a lot running the restaurant with me. We didn't have a chef because my dad was the main chef, so we had to get another chef in. So I was running the restaurant, with my little family at the time to the best that we could. Have
you had a job by this point, or is this still?
No. I'm now going out to look for a job at the same time.
So this is in that period,
in that little period in 2015. I'm out there trying to look for a job as a graduate. I'm trying to sort out my parents' problems, and then I'm also running the family business at the same time because I was the eldest. I had no choice. I had to step up, as the head of the family, which I was kind of playing that dual role with my dad anyway for a few years, but that was, I really had to step up at that time because there's money involved here. There's all sorts of stuff involved here, relationships involved here, people's careers. Anything could happen at that time. So, I was really down in the dumps for a little while because I was like, what do I do? My mom was really upset. She didn't want to let go of the restaurant because we worked really hard to get it to where it was.
And that was your bread and butter, I'm guessing, as a family.
Yeah, of course, as a family, yeah. So, my mom was really upset because it becomes personal to you. It's your little baby, it's your little business. And she didn't want to let it go. So I had the red and blue pill situation again. I had two options. I had the option of letting go of my career for a couple of years. I'll come back to it. Like people say, I'll come back to it 2 years, 3 years, 4 years.
They never do.
And I'm going to run the restaurant, because my family restaurant, whatnot. And I told myself, you know what? I think I've done my fair share of sacrifices for the family. I think I've done my fair share of, putting my own dreams to the side for, my family's dreams and whatnot. I think I need to focus on myself. And the way I could see where the business was going, it was a very high risk because you're in a very saturated market as is anyway. And just doing my own market research, I was like, you know what? Yes, it could potentially do well, or it could fail. But then that could have an ongoing effect on me because now I've delayed my career by 2, 3, 4 years, whatnot. So I decided, I had to decide. My mom mentally at that time wasn't capable of deciding anything because she was trying to deal with her own relationship with my dad. And then she's got her sons to manage. Now she's got this business to manage, and it could become very, very overwhelming. And mentally, she wasn't stable at the time.
I was going to just ask you there, actually, just about your mum, because she's made certain choices for you that, as on reflection, you look back, some were good, some were bad. Yeah. What's your overall feeling about that? Because it sounds like she's got a lot of influence, or she's had a lot of influence in your choices. Yeah. What does that mean for you now, reflecting back?
If it wasn't because of my mum, I wouldn't be anywhere where I am today. She, as any parent does, make good and bad choices for your kids, whatnot. She's made way more good choices than bad. And ultimately, she's always said to me and my brothers that no matter what happens, always do what you want to do and always do what is going to help you prosper, become stable and have a good life, and be a good person, be a good Muslim, etc. and have an education, and your career is important. So ultimately, she's always drilled it into us to be independent, to have the ability to make your own choices, but understand the consequences of those choices. Ultimately, even though I had to step up and make that choice, for example, of selling the restaurant because I told my mom I have to focus on my career, she fully supported me because she's like, I agree with you. Restaurant, it may do well, it may not. I don't want that to affect you, even though we're going through a difficult time as a family. I think you're right. I think that's the right decision.
It sounds like she's always had your back. So there might be choices that she's guided you to, or things that she's wanted for you, say. But when you've gone against that eventually, she's still had your back on it.
Yeah, always. Yeah. Well, because she knew I've always made a logical choice. I've thought about things I was 25, 26. I'm acting like I'm 35, 36 with life experience. I can make these choices, but I don't know. I've just, I guess, had this ability, or whatever you want to call it, that, I kind of make a choice where I know it's got the best interest of me and my family. And it worked out well. And at the time, we then decided to sell it. We sold it. There's a huge burden off our chest. And then I was able to focus, but I actually secured my first job whilst still having the restaurant.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you didn't have a period where you just didn't have any money?
Didn't have nothing. No. So I had the restaurant. I was going to interviews at the same time. I was dealing with my parents' problems. I had multiple things on my plate. But I just learned to manage it, however I learned to manage it at the time. I did it. There are many times where you kind of break down, as a man. But, you're just like, in my head, I'm like, if I break down, my family breaks down. That was it. There was, if there was any moment at that time that I showed any kind of weakness or any kind of signs of me breaking down, or I couldn't handle it, my family would lose all hope instantly.
So you had that feeling in your head that you couldn't show?
No chance, because they were already feeling a bit defeated, already feeling a bit down, etc. And
is dad not in the setup now?
No. So my dad,
have you lost touch with him?
Yeah, he completely just decided to just go off at that time, and just left us to manage the restaurant and stuff. So
how did that make you feel?
Oh, it was difficult, man. It was really, really difficult.
Because it's not just the restaurant, is it? It's the emotional, the father figure, the guy that you've looked up to.
Yeah, 100%. As I said, things were quite rocky throughout the years, but ultimately, still your father. I still love him and stuff, and we always wanted him to be a part of our life, no matter what. And when all of a sudden he's just out of the picture, it's quite difficult to, start to see your life without him there. And then you're making these big life decisions because some of these decisions I was making was affecting 3 other people. It wasn't just me, So that's a huge burden on somebody at sort of that age.
Did you use your uncles to kind of almost replace that father figure?
Oh, yeah. And as I said, when I got married, instead of my father wasn't there, my uncle was there, So they've kind of been like a father figure for me my whole life. But I had the guidance from them there anyway. At the time, and had my friends and my family. Some of my friends are like my brothers. Because whenever I needed to feel like I needed to lift up, or regain that confidence, people were there to help me regain that confidence.
So then you've got your was it an IT ops manager at Computershare?
Yeah.
How did that go for you? First job in the big wide world?
Yeah. So that's when I first got into IT operations in Computershare. It wasn't the job that I wanted though. Because I had to do night shifts as well. So it's like a 4 on 4 off where I was managing systems overnight, like batch jobs and running upgrades, running patches and stuff overnight. I hated it.
That stuff gets shipped off to India now.
Yeah. Does
that job even exist, do you think?
No. After I left, after about a year, they got rid of the whole department.
Yeah, they normally offshore it now,
they offshored it. So, but when they first offered me the role, as in offered me the opportunity to go for an interview, I declined it because I didn't want to do the shifts. But then every other job I was applying for, I was getting rejected here, because they're like, oh, you haven't got any experience or whatever it was at the time.
And 2015 is just after the credit crunch.
Yeah.
So was jobs hard to come by, do you think?
It was, it was just rejection after rejection, really. I couldn't really get the job I wanted. There wasn't really anything out there. Junior roles were non-existent, really. I mean, this was the only one I could find because I really needed people to fill in for shifts. So then I told myself, you know what, any experience is better than nothing, right? So I then called them back after about a month, probably less than a month. And I said, hey, do you guys still have a role? They're like, yeah, we've got 2 more roles to fill. Do you want to go in for your first interview? So I went in for my interview. It went really well. They offered me the role, and I hated the role. I mean, I love the people. Great people, but the night shifts, it's coming to like 2, 3 in the morning. I'm like falling asleep and stuff, but I did it because I needed experience.
Well, you didn't want it in the first place, right? So, you did it as a stepping stone.
I needed it,
And did your restaurant experience help you with your...
Massively, yeah, because I learned a lot from the restaurant trade.
But did that help you at interview? Did you use examples,
I had to use because they asked me, can you give us customer service experience or or stakeholder management experience, or how you communicate with people, how you dealt with problems. They want to see if you can think logically, you're able to make your own decisions. You might not have the technical skills. That's okay. They're going to teach you that. But do you have the basic skills for them? And are you the right fit? Are you the right personality? And I use all my experience from restaurant basically.
But looking at your career, so you did a year there. Then you got another job as a application support analyst.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, again, similar, maintaining systems or software, is it?
Yeah. So, that was more focused around sort of database management in SQL and managing kind of specialized application for that company. And that was really good. That was back into normal 9-to-5 life. So I literally, in my head, I was like, I'm going to do this role in Computer Chef for 1 year. I did it for 13 months. I literally just started applying for interviews, jobs, left, right, and center. And I got a few more interviews naturally because I had that 1 year experience. It was a completely different experience of applying for jobs than when it was when I had no experience.
Yeah, experience makes a massive
difference. So that's what I tell people. Look, sometimes you might not find the exact role you want. Just do it because it's going to complement your degree, and then you'll have a much better chance of securing a better role. Then I went back to normal 9-to-5 life. It was near sort of Temple Meads.
But you only did that for a year.
Yeah. So
why did you do that for a year? And not
this was good, and this is where, coming on to another important point I would like to make, is your social circle is very, very, very important. So I'm very fortunate to be around people who are very, very successful in their careers, investments, etc. And at the time, my friends were doing really well. They were a little bit, they graduated about a year or two before me, but they started to climb up the corporate ladder quite quickly. Yeah. So in my head, I was like, man, I want to do the same.
People like Saj and others.
My friend Saj, and I've got other friends.
It's funny that, 'cause I've actually worked with him a couple of times.
And I've a couple of other friends as well. Started doing really well, and I was like, you know what? If these guys can do it, I can do it. They were, and I
even Donny.
Donny, yeah. Kausar, yeah, exactly. Kausar he's doing absolutely amazing. So
he's a geek, though, isn't he?
He is a geek, yeah. He's a proper geek. So I was like, these guys are doing it, and they were earning X amount, right? And I was like, oh man, I'm not earning anywhere near that. Like I'm 10, 15 grand less than that. I was like, I want to, be like them. And I was only there for like 10 months in JLT, and I started to apply for jobs, right? Because I was like, you know what, I need to start.
Yeah. So your circle start to influence your aspirations. You want to push forward.
Massively, yeah. Because these guys were telling me how they got to where they got to, what decisions they made, and all that kind of stuff. So,
and then Clearbank came knocking.
Yeah. So
you did Clearbank for a good stint. You stayed there for a long time.
I was there for a long time. Yeah, it was a really, really good place to work.
Because we kind of reconnected, I'd say. So I knew when you were 15, 16. Yeah. I didn't see you around at uni. So I just assumed you're a good boy. I didn't see you much in your new jobs, but then I started to see you around more so from about 2018 onwards. Yeah. And you always talk highly of Clearbank. You really enjoyed your time there, and that's throughout from 2018 right up to when you left more recently. You've always talked really highly of it. So what was it about Clearbank that you really enjoyed? And
so I remember at the time when I did the interview, this is more for people who are hopefully might watch this or listen to it and be like, what can I do in an interview that can make me stand out from my competition? So what I did at the Clearbank interview was I was only in JLT for 9-10 months, and I made a LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn, if you haven't got LinkedIn, you should get LinkedIn because it helps you massively in your career. They headhunted me and they said, Abul, you can see you're open to work and you're looking to, are you looking to apply for a new role? I'm like, yeah, I'm interested. Anyway, all that stuff went for the interview. And I was like, what can I do differently in the interview than my competition? And I really, really wanted a role because it was a fintech and it sounded really cool and I could I knew Clearbank's going to help me elevate, in my career.
They sold you the whole, you can grow with us.
Yeah, grow with us. You'll learn. You'll be one of the first 100 people in the company, which I was at the time. And so what I did was...
So normally they give you some like equity or shares or something, right?
Yeah, which I have. So hopefully that'll help me retire early if they do well, which they are doing really well. So So I went to the interview, right? And I only knew this after my interview. So I went in thinking, you know what? Instead of just doing a normal competency-based interview where they're going to ask you a couple of technical questions and a couple of, just competency-based questions, I used the STAR methodology. Use that if you don't use it.
Task,
yeah, exactly. Worked really well. But what I did extra was I took in some examples of what I was doing in my current job.
So you took a portfolio with you, or
a little bit of a portfolio, took out some printouts, and I got a blank piece of paper and I put it in front of them, and I almost did my own little presentation. I said, look, you're giving me this scenario. This is what I would do. This is how I would draw out the architecture of the system. And then they're like, oh, they start taking the paper. Like, oh, what is this? What is this guy just drawn? Like, this is really interesting. So you're almost engaging them in the interview alongside yourself. And then did all that, went really well, I thought, and then I didn't know if it went well. I thought it went okay. Anyway, come back out of the interview. I literally left the building. Before I got into my car, I had a call from the recruitment company who were separate from Clearbank. First thing he goes to me on the phone, he goes,
how do you think it went?
Not even that.
No,
he
they always ask you how I think it went.
Yeah. He goes to me, what did you do? I was like, huh?
You thought, oh God, I screwed up.
Yeah, I thought I screwed up, man. I was thinking, what did I do? I was like, what do you mean, mate? I was like, did my interview? I hope. He goes, no, seriously, mate, what did you do? Like, how do you think? Then he said, how do you think it went after that? So I said, I think it went all right. I hope I did all right. Then he goes, mate, they loved you. I'm thinking, really? I thought, what did I do? What did I do so different? He goes, that's what I'm asking you. What did you do so different? And then he goes to me, can you walk me through your interview? So literally, this guy was really intrigued, right? So I just walked him through my interview, and then I was telling him all the bits I did, and I got to the bit where I was doing the little mini presentation. He goes, stop there. He goes, that's what you did different to your competition. So he goes, I put in people in the same interview as you who had 5-10 years more experience than you, by the way, mate. You've only got 2 years experience, if that, in IT. And the salary was really good. It was a good jump at the time. And he goes, they love that about you. They offered you the job, mate. Do you want to take it, yes or no? And I was like, yeah.
Did you negotiate at the time, or were you so excited that you got your elation and you just jumped on it?
Yeah, no. I obviously negotiated the salary and stuff, and and the contract and whatnot. And it was already a really good jump up for me. And I was just happy, And then he goes to me at the end. He goes, Abul, what you just shared with me, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to share my other candidates who go in for other interviews.
See, I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, you shouldn't have told him, because he's going to tell.
He's going to go and tell all of them. Yeah. But I didn't care. I got the job anyway at the time, and it was fine. So yeah, and then I joined Clearbank, and I was there for 6 years. And, I kind of just, I went, through the ranks, became a sort of IT operations lead, and then specialized more into Swift architecture. And, then eventually I moved into DevOps in the last 2 years of being there.
Can you just explain what DevOps is? Because I've worked in tech roles, obviously, so I get
so
DevOps.
DevOps is, So DevOps is basically a mixture. It's a combination of dev work, so software engineering, and infrastructure. So it's a bit of
that's still not layman's terms.
yeah. So you basically
geeky stuff.
Yeah. So back in the days, you'd have software engineers just doing software engineering, and you have infrastructure guys just doing networking and building your PCs and building.
I was getting, what's software engineering?
Yeah.
What is software enengineering?
So software,
is that literally
writing code and building a tangible product like applications? It could be web apps, websites, actual software that you're delivering for a client, and that software will have a GUI and it will produce reports maybe and do all this fancy stuff, whatever the client's requirement is. These guys will write thousands of lines of code to produce your software or web app or website. And then the other guys, the infrastructure guys, will build the infrastructure to allow software engineers to then build their code, on like a server, or the networking around it, those kind of things. In as basic layman terms, as
sexy.
Yeah, DevOps came about where they needed automation. So a lot of this stuff of building a server or building a network or cloud computing, which is a buzzword for the last sort of decade or so, has been really fascinating. And I started to learn more about Azure when I worked in Clearbank. And it was all about how can you spin up infrastructure quickly, but with code, not with clicking buttons. It's all about writing code to automate the process of your software, your code delivery from end to end.
You still have to put that down to layman's terms. Obviously, I was in product, so I'm being pedantic and I'm being flippant. But for most people listening in,
it was technical or something. Yeah, hopefully no.
You probably have to dumb it down and make it a little bit more layman's terms.
Yeah. So
you basically, if I try and summarize it, so you're basically building software to automate.
So basically, so for example, let's just say developer A, he's about to work with a bunch of other developers, and his client wants him to produce a web app that probably produces reports for our finance department. Okay, so now developer A, he needs to write code, and he needs to be able to push that code into different environments. So we have like a test environment, dev environment, and we have a production environment, which is your live environment of where your code runs. So in order for the developer to write the code, to push that code through those environments into the live environment, it needs to go through a certain process, a pipeline, as we call it.
Gates.
Like gates, yeah, literally, yeah. And you have to get approval. We've done it in a test environment. The QAs have tested it. It's all good. Now we can go to the next environment.
QAs are?
Quality assurance. Yeah. Or QE, quality engineers, whatever you want to call them. So we facilitate that end-to-end pipeline into production. But instead of having it old school where they're just writing a bit of code, saving it on the local machine and then pushing it up to production, which is not the way to do it. DevOps brings in stability, it brings in source control, it brings in approval, it brings in auditing, all sorts into it. But we do it through code instead of manually building.
So you've learned, I guess, the right way to develop. Absolutely. And obviously Clearbank's really helped you. And Clearbank's a fintech, right?
Yeah.
So you would have done what? Like been a jack of all trades within your little area?
Yeah. It's very different to, I work for Lloyd's now, obviously. And, you're sort of one of many, many DevOps engineers in a particular department.
Would you say that in Lloyd's, now we talked about this in the car, right?
Yeah.
Would you say you're more kind of narrow but deeper knowledge needed?
Yes.
And Clearbank, you're probably more wider.
You literally are a jack of all trades in a fintech like that, because there was only one DevOps team, where in Lloyd's there's multiple DevOps teams. So you were in charge of, the servers, you were in charge of, where the code is being deployed to, you were in charge of the environments, you were in charge of the entire Microsoft Azure estate, you were in charge of it. Whereas in Lloyd's, you're in charge of a small part of it,
But then you become mastery of that little small
exactly, part. Yeah. You need to have a bit more, experience and sort of specialism in that part of, the infrastructure.
That's what I found working in kind of more of a fintech versus working in a established player, let's say, in the corporate sector is, you're just spread more thinly, but you learn a lot more because you're across the board. Yeah. But then when you're an established player, you get mastery into that, like kind of one smaller area, but you are the
sort of niche into that particular field. Yeah, 100%.
So in that time, you're in Clearbank. Is that when you started looking at property?
Yeah, absolutely. The buzzword. Yeah. So
when did property come about for you? Because I know you're into you dabble.
Yeah. 100%. I do dabble. Yeah. When I can. But property for me it's almost like everyone's bit of a dream, right? Some people have a dream of just having a house, and that might be renting. But my dream was always to own a house, because growing up as a kid, I never had that stability of owning a home. We was always renting, moving from one place to another, and it was really difficult. So I was like, you know what? I would like to build my own stability one day, and owning a home, whether it's a flat, whether it's a house, whatever it may be, would be amazing. And the only way I could get that is by working hard, right? About 2 years into Clearbank, when I started to save up a bit more money, I had a lump sum of cash in my account. This is where my mum came in massively as well, right? So I had enough money to put down a deposit for a home. But then I wasn't too sure. I was oohing and eyeing, and then my mum was like, buy a house or you're going to end up spending that money on a car or a holiday, and then you're going to regret it. It's going to take another few years to save up a bit more. Make the right choice, son. assets are what was going to build your future and your security. And this was going back exactly 5 years ago now. And so then at the time, and this is where social circle was so important. I remember speaking to one of my, a friend of mine, he kind of was looking into properties, but he was looking into new builds. They were a bit more affordable because you had something called the Help to Buy scheme and whatnot. So with me at the time, my salary was a lot less than what I was on now. So, and because I was by myself, I wasn't married or anything, it was a bit harder to get onto the property ladder. So I then looked for, okay, you know what, maybe I could use one of these schemes to help me get onto the property ladder. Because I've got X amount of savings, and with a little bit of a top up, I could potentially be a homeowner. So then, but we looked at all the risks, even at that time, what are the risks of buying a new build house? How secure are they? How stable are they compared to a house that was built in the 80s or 70s? Structurally, firstly. Secondly, are these schemes any good? Are they actually going to benefit you, or are they there to just rip you off and government make money off you?
What's your opinion on that? Of as having experienced Help to Buy?
Great scheme, if you use it wisely in the right area.
Right. What does that mean, using it wisely?
So, firstly, don't get too happy, sort of trigger happy and be like, oh, I'm going to go for the maximum amount and borrow huge, up to 20% you can borrow, because then, and I can put in less than, buy a car or something. Still try to put in as much as you can of your own money and try to use as less of that 20% pot as you can, because you have to repay that money back. And, we sat there and looked at all the risks, right? Okay, so what does that 20% mean for that, or 10% or 5%, whatever you borrow? So the first 5 years is completely interest free. You pay nothing on it. And then after 5 years, you then have to either pay it back, or you just decide to pay it monthly, but you have to pay interest on it, right? So that can get very costly because depending on the amount you've borrowed and stuff. So at the time, we thought, okay, if we buy it, because we're buying in Bristol, again, location, because of the type of property, it was a detached property, 3-bedroom, and the area as well. I thought to myself, I looked at the sort of yearly yields in Bristol at the time, and I was like, right, this might be a good investment, because two things will come out of it. One, I will be a homeowner, and two, I thought to myself, in 5 years, I could remortgage my property, I could pay off that Help to Buy, and I'll have extra equity left that I could use for whatever it is I wanted to use.
What year did you buy that?
That was in 2019. I bought it. In July 2019 it was.
So exactly 5 years.
Yeah, exactly 5 years.
So did you follow through on that plan?
Absolutely. It literally went according to plan, which was it was a risk at the time, but I thought to myself, you know what, it's going to work out. I just had that confidence that it's going to work out. And now 5 years forward, today, the property went up in value. It went up more than I had anticipated.
Let's talk numbers, man. This is meant to be raw and deep, so let's hear it. So what did you buy it for?
The property was on the market for 292. Because I was
292 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's not cheap, man.
Yeah, still not cheap.
Bristol, that's quite
exactly. It still wasn't that cheap. But it was a nice 3-bedroom detached property, not too far from my mum's house as well. So 292. Because I was the first batch of buyers, because it was just gravel, it was nothing there, not a single house.
So you bought it off plan?
Yeah, I bought it off plan. I went to Keynsham. They had one built there, so I can kind of see it, what it looks like built, and I was happy with it. It was more than enough space for what I wanted.
And what is it now? What's the value now?
Yeah, so I managed to negotiate with them and get it for 288. They don't give any discounts, by the way, in new builds ever. And the actual price, because I was the first 10 buyers, something like that, I managed to negotiate some money off. So I bought it for 288. As of today, it's 400 grand. Value market. So, for me, it's refinance, pay the Help to Buy off, and I got a nice extra. So two things happened for me. One, 5 years forward, I've moved into my property with my wife. I have a home that I could call my own home and I've lived in. And two, I've made a nice amount of equity, which has helped me pay the Help to Buy off. It's done. It's my property. And I've got extra equity, which I'll be using to reinvest.
So you had a long-term mindset, I would say, back then. And as a result of that mindset, you've made well over £100,000 in less than 5 years.
Yeah.
That's mental.
Yeah.
Absolutely mental. So, all right, with the remainder of the time, we've touched on property. This is a property podcast, but obviously we were looking at bringing people in who are dabbling in property, but are doing very well in their careers.
Yeah.
What does the future look like for Abul? What does the next 5 years look like for Abul?
Really good question. So for the next 5 years, my ultimate goal is going to be investing in my future. And what I mean by that is ideally assets, aka properties, as well as. So I enjoy my career very much. I 100% look to stay in my career, but ultimately I've always liked to be my own boss, just from that little experience of running my own restaurant and stuff. I loved being in charge of my time, being in charge of my decisions, my investments. So my ultimate goal really is to work for myself. And in the next, 5 years, my sort of plan is to continue doing well in my career. I think I'll still be working the next 5 years because I'm still quite young. But if I can build up a nice portfolio by the time in the next 5 years, then yeah, maybe I just go into contracting and I just work 6 months, take 6 months off because I'll be very, very well established by then in my career. Or I don't sit in more of a senior role and take a bit of a step down where it's just, my investments become my main income and then my career becomes my, my sort of passive income. Yeah, basically, that'll be the dream.
So yeah, your investments would your passive income and your career. Well, your job would just become whether you want to work or not. You can take that decision.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
And so actually, on the note of investment, so kind of you're thinking property investment as a future opportunity. You've not just dabbled in, you're not just thinking property investments. You've dabbled in crypto. You've talked about crypto in the past. So
little bit of crypto, but mainly stocks. More primarily stocks. Yeah.
How did you start that?
During the whole GameStop frenzy that happened, I started just before that.
What's a GameStop frenzy? What's that?
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody was aware of it at the time, but it was the little guys versus the big banks, the big boys at the time, where they were pushing the stock price, higher than, because the big banks were shorting it, and all the little guys like me were buying up the stock to push the price up. So the opposite was happening, and they were losing money. We were making money. But I was part of that, me and a couple of my friends, and it was great fun. But just before that, I had already started looking into where else can I diversify my portfolio.
Oh, hang on. You knew the big banks were shorting? How did you know that?
Just market research. News on Twitter, news on stock tweets and all of that. You just start seeing, GameStop everywhere, like going crazy. And you think, what the hell is going on? Or what is actually happening? And then you start to look into it, you're like, whoa, they call it the short squeeze, right? So literally,
would you say you made a quick buck through that then?
Yeah.
And did you use a broker or you did it
myself? Yeah. So I use a broker like Trading 212. I used Webull for my charting. So you can start to see, all your graphs and stuff. And all your tickers. So yeah, and but before going into GameStop and stuff, I was investing in companies we all know of, like Tesla. Did really well in Tesla, Apple, AMD. So the stocks that so that's where you should always start, because you should invest in companies that are safe, and because you need to learn you need to learn the arts, you need to learn what investing is, what does it mean to own a share in a company.
And how did you do that?
Just research. I was so intrigued.
Through blogs or through reports?
Just mainly firstly friends, because I've seen one or two of my friends on the phone. They bring up an app, and all of a sudden you see loads of charts. You're like, what's going on here? What is this? I knew what it was, but I didn't really know what it was until you look into it. And they're like, oh yeah, I buy some shares here and shares there for longer term because I want to see return on my investment and stuff like that. And that's sort of, I want to do that. It sounds really cool. The returns seem really, really good.
So even though you did some short-term stuff to build up some quick cash flow, was the intention always long-term?
It was, yeah. It was first long-term, because I started to buy into Tesla and stuff because I knew it was a great company.
Oh, and you held the Tesla stocks?
I had, for a long time, for a good 6 months or so, and it worked really well. But through that process, when I started to really understand how stocks work, how the market works, what makes a stock go down, what makes it go up, in layman's term, what affects a stock, and which companies are good to invest in, and how to start really understanding company financials, reading balance sheets, and looking at their products, what they're offering to the market, all those kind of things. And eventually got to a point where I started to look at, short-term trading. So holding stocks for a couple of days, maybe less than a week or fortnight, and then quickly flipping it for a decent amount of profit. So that came afterwards.
And where did crypto come from?
So crypto, again, just came from, along the journey of trading stocks, because wherever somebody mentions stocks, they're going to mention crypto. It's all in the same breath, really. So then, if you're trading in stocks, you're going to want to trade in, look into crypto. So I started looking into Bitcoin, and then started looking into stuff like XRP, and a few of the other. I don't really have any Bitcoin at the moment, mainly just stocks.
How did crypto go for you? How did crypto?
Yeah, crypto went all right for me, actually, because I didn't really have a massive amount of faith in crypto. I didn't really trust it as much because it had a massive crash. Last year. Is obviously doing really, really well now, and they'll probably do really well going forward for a bit. But and I just didn't really trust it.
So too volatile for you.
Yeah, it was too volatile.
So would you say your mindset was always in the long term?
Yeah,
and crypto was just too volatile. You wanted to kind of invest in something that.
I felt comfortable with what I knew, and I knew stocks really well, and the returns were just as good, if not better. So I was like, well, I'm quite comfortable with that. Plenty of tickers I can look into, and I can spend all my time just looking at stocks and making good returns. Why do I really need to start focusing on Bitcoin as well? So that's why I stuck with stocks. Yeah.
And so going forward then, so obviously we've talked about property, and that's kind of an ambition that you wanted to do to build yourself a portfolio. Will that be a diverse portfolio of things? So you've got your property and then you're thinking stocks to supplement that as well?
Yeah, both. So that's my key focus really for 2024 is start to kick off the property portfolio. But also, since I've got married, I haven't really had that much time to look into stocks and stuff. But now I'm a bit more settled, and things are going okay. I'm really going to start to focus on stocks and shares. I've started to build a strategy over time in terms of what works well and what doesn't work well. So my plan really is to focus on what works well and keep building on that. So I'm really working on two businesses in a way, side by side.
So you've kind of tested, learned, and you're refining.
Trial and error.
Fantastic.
Trial and error, yeah.
And I love the long-term mindset as well, because I think that's really, because you've had that long-term mindset, you've been really successful with your stocks and shares, and hopefully you'll be really successful with the property portfolio building as well.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what I'm kind of looking forward to. It's all about long-term mindset. Even Warren Buffett says, right, if you look at some of his famous quotes, it's all about longer term investing. If you have patience, perseverance, and you invest in the right stuff, whether it's properties, whether it's in stocks and shares, long term investors will always outdo the short term investor, always.
And on that bombshell, thank you so much, Abul.
No problem.
You've been a pleasure to listen to your life story, the highs, the lows, the learnings that you've taken, and I really hope that viewers and listeners will get so much value from today's podcast.
Hopefully.
Thank you so much. Now, if you would like to hear more from people like Abul, don't forget that subscribe button and click comment, like, share. Thank you.